Hello, everybody. I wanted to run an idea by you. One of my students this week asked me, how do I get through big books? And I said, what do you mean? And she showed me a book and it was like 400 pages. So I said, okay, well, what kind of book is it? And she showed me, and it was one of those self-help books, a kind of how to win friends and influence people. And I said, okay, so 500 pages is a lot. And for somebody who's learning English, it's even longer. So I said, why did you buy the book? And she said, well, I was interested in, funnily enough, what it has to say. But in particular, there was a couple of points and ideas that she'd heard the author talking about on a YouTube video. And he referenced the book and wanted to read it. So what we did was we got the book, turned to the contents page, and then I got her to go down the 20 chapters and read them out to me. So we went through the chapters, and then I said, okay, so of those 20 chapters, which is the chapter that really interests you? What's the idea there that's coming across? And she said, well, it was chapters, 16 and 17, but in particular chapter 16. So I said, okay, well, let's turn to chapter 16. So we turned to chapter 16, and there was a nice heading which gave colour to the chapter, and then there was a summary statement which was a quote from somebody else. And then I said, right, let's just read the opening paragraph. So we read that, and it kind of was a summary of what had come before and was setting the picture for this chapter. Then we went to chapter 2, paragraph 2. And in paragraph 2, that's where the author really began to set down the idea that was going to be played out within the chapter. So I said, okay, so what do you think? And she said, yeah, this is really interesting. So that chapter was broken down into like 4 different sections. So we started reading, and I said, okay, let's stop now. Let's go to the next section. Let's read the first paragraph there. So we did that, then the third, then the fourth. And I said, how does that feel? And she goes, well, actually, that's really good, because that's the bit I'm really interested in. And then we discussed the idea that the whole book, all 400 pages, a lot of it was introduction and scene setting. And, with any book like that, where they're giving you a story, they're telling you the story of how they discovered these ideas and how they played out, and the research that backs them up, or the experience that backs them up. Not all of it is relevant to understanding that particular idea itself. So we sat together and we read, and she read about maybe 4 or 5 pages, and I said, right, okay, so how do you feel about that? And she was really relieved, because she'd gotten to the bit that she really wanted to look at, and the bit that she really wanted to understand. So she went away from class, and we came back, and I said, how are you getting on with the book, obviously? And she said, it's really good. She said, I'm really, really enjoying it. So she'd read that chapter and enjoyed it and got a lot out of it, and they'd started on the next chapter. And then I said, how do you feel about reading the rest of the book? And she was like, well, I don't really want to. The ideas I'm interested in are in this chapter 15, 16. So I said to her, that's how you approach big books. The author won't mind that you're not reading all of the book. They've got your money, and they wrote the book to give you something of value. They wanted you to, experience the ideas that they were putting across in the book. And you've done that. So if you want to come back to the book in the future, then that's fine. If there's more you want to, explore in the future, that's fine. And then she said something which I thought was very telling, and also something that I felt. She said she felt guilty that she didn't read the whole book, and that was stopping her from reading. Because the thought of reading 500 words, or 500 pages, was too much. And it is daunting. It's daunting even if it's in your first language, let alone if it's in your third language for her. So there's a little tip there. When you're reading non-fiction, it's okay to narrow down on the part that you're interested in And if it's really interesting, that will inspire you to read the rest of the book when you want to. And it's not cheating. It's what I've done with my degrees. An academic has written a brilliant book, but I'm only interested in one chapter and one section. So then I would read and study those. And when they're well written, they stand alone. You don't need what's come before. It might be colourful and helpful. It might give you, deeper context. But when you're reading academic works, obviously, I'm narrowing down on particular ideas or particular themes, that author's understanding of them, and you don't need to read the whole book. And I would say that with any reading while you're learning is cherry pick. Just pick out the bits that really interest you, because we want you to read and we want you to have a positive experience and not to be labouring under this sense of guilt and burden that we all feel when we've got work to do, things to read. There's always ways to focus your attention, focus your understanding, and to use your sort of intellectual and emotional resources very carefully. So that's my tip. Cherry pick. If you like the back of the book, that's good. Read the introduction. Always brilliant. Always very densely written introductions, because they're telling you about the whole idea. And then go into the contents. Choose the chapters that you think will that really interest you. Check them out. If they don't, check another chapter. And if they don't, maybe it's not the book for you. But don't feel guilty and burdened that you have to read 500 pages of a famous book. Like I say, the authors will have got your money. They won't mind. They won't mind at all. They'll just be happy you're taking something away from them. And then you can read more again later. But now you'll have that accomplishment of thinking, I've got something, I've learned something, I've read something, and I'll benefit from it. So that was my thought based on my class just a few days ago. Okay, take care. See you next time.